All right. Hey, General McGee, thank you for the great privilege of joining me this afternoon. So,
It's great for me too, and thank you for
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
there.
you and I were together last at the Air Force worship service, birthday worship service at the National Cathedral last year.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you and I walked out together after the service was over. It was a privilege for me to join you there.
Right to the parking entrance. Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad to be able to share, and certainly be glad to answer any questions or whatever is in the mail.
Well, good, good. We saw that you participated in the coin toss last year at the Super Bowl. Just I'm just wondering what you remember about that, and were you a Chiefs or a 49ers fan that day?
Well, to me, the key was that there were four four of us veterans there. I am all at the 100-year point, but the others were in wheelchair, and I was still able to walk, so they picked me to go over and present the coin to the referee. So it was quite a joyful time, but to represent the other veterans, not only those of us, the four of us there representing veterans all over the country, was a wonderful experience.
Wow. Well, we were so proud to see an airman leading the way there at the
It,
Super Bowl.
that's the joy, another one of God's blessings, the way I look at it.
And so what do you attest? You're just in incredible shape, and it was clear at the Super Bowl, and it's been clear to all of us who've had a chance to meet you. What do you credit for being in such good physical health all these years?
Well, I, I, my answer to most always there, it's one of God's blessings that I can still drive, still walk. Have to use a cane now, but happenstance of life is not just my wish. It certainly is with a blessing. So, and I just say, do what you can, because none of us are promised tomorrow. So you keep going as long as you can.
Boy, that's so true. Obviously, for the rest of us, we know you as a pioneer in aviation, and specifically with the Tuskegee Airmen. Um,
That
I,
was a start. So
sure, and I'm just wondering if you could just share with us a little bit about what it was like to be in pilot training in Tuskegee, Alabama, and what that experience as a black fighter pilot was for you.
that's an interesting question. You know, the country had come out of 10 years of depression when our leadership declared war to help our allies in Europe, and didn't change segregation, but it provided opportunity. The job in the build up to support the war effort, the opportunity to enlist and share. So there was a coming together of the country behind a common cause, and so fortunately, although I had not aspired to be a pilot, it turned out that well, sometimes I'm asked how did I get into aviation. I'd say, well, I was avoiding the draft. I was in college, and because I was in school, my draft board in Indiana wasn't pulling my number. Occasionally, when they needed, they did that, but they, fortunately, I missed that. But I learned about the flying experience, interestingly, because one of the policies that the Army had established for mobilization was they couldn't use a black pilot if they didn't have black mechanics.
Hmm.
So of the now called Tuskegee Airmen, the first were the mechanics. Of course, the Army's policy, that's not going to be successful. We've studied the issue and we know it won't work. but the pressure was on, and so we'll experiment. We'll authorize the squadron, but we know it's not going to be successful.
Hmm.
But since they had to have mechanics first, they had mechanics in training at Chanute Field, Rantoul, Illinois,
Uh-huh.
technical school. Expected to fail, they didn't. In fact, they were actually tested twice because the leadership there didn't believe their scores in their first round of testing. They still, in the high 90s, 95 to 100, and so they put them in training. I learned about that, and as I say, although in ROTC I learned to handle a rifle, Pershing rifles, but had I been called up, I'm sure that would have been infantry or on the ground or something like that with that rifle.
Sure.
But learning about the flying experience, I passed the exams for pilot training and got called directly as a cadet in October of 1942 to go directly to Tuskegee. Well, it was under Tuskegee Institute. They had the Army's contract for the primary phase of their flight training, and they built the Army airfield. Now, that's interesting because the mechanics were successful, and they said, "My gosh, we need an airfield for pilot training." Airfields all around, but they said they're dealing with something they just sure wasn't going to be successful. But they found, I think, about $4 million to build a separate airfield. They located it about 7 miles northwest of Tuskegee Institute, Tuskegee, Alabama, and built Tuskegee Army Airfield. So mechanics trained at Chanute went south. In fact, they put them over at Maxwell and Montgomery while the airfield was being built, but they didn't use them because they didn't want to integrate. So the pilot training began in 1941 for this 99 pursuit squadron they expected to fail. They were very successful and they were combat ready. Pilots and mechanics and the skills necessary for the squadron to operate in segregation separately, December of 1942. So I was just entering my training when they're ready to go into combat. But part of that story is no white commander wanted them. They kept them in training for another 3 or 4 months. So it was in the spring of 43 before they finally sent them to North Africa, attached to the 33rd Fighter Group. Colonel Wohlmeyer didn't want them, but they didn't go to his base. They went to, again, segregation went overseas. They had their own base. They sent a pilot or representative over to the 33rd to get their mission, come back. They flew separately, but attached to that group. But that was the start of the black pilots in training and then into combat.
So, sir, did you have any idea what a revolutionary kind of experience you were undertaking and how this would have such an effect on history?
No, I don't. As I say, I don't think any of us went south to set the world on fire. There were some who had aspired to get into aviation from the time they were little. As I say, for me, I was avoiding the draft. as a way of putting it. But my first flight, I was hooked. I loved flying. To be able to get in the air and loop, roll, and spin and come back, put your feet on the ground. I don't think there was anything better. Why and how it struck me that way, I don't have the answer. But I love flying, still do, and still able to fly, if you will, because I was lucky enough to be given the flight in a Cirrus jet, corporate aircraft on my 100th birthday. So,
Wow, that's great.
and again, sometimes I say, why me, how me? Chaplain, I don't have the answer, but I actively flew 27 of my 30 years. The only thing I asked for when they had a preference statement, I'd like to be stationed on the West Coast, never happened in my 30 years of service. But I was doing something I enjoyed, and that's what I like to pass on to youngsters now. They determine their talents and so on. Hope you put your finger on something you enjoy doing.
Yeah. So, sir, what advice would you have for young African Americans who are really trying to figure out how to deal with the obstacles that they face? What advice would you have for them?
Well, my advice is for all Americans, not just the African American, but hopefully schooling and so on helps prepare them to be able to take their place. But for all of the youngsters right now, I have what I call 4 Ps: perceive, prepare, perform, persevere. Perceive, dream your dreams, and among it, find your talents, and hopefully, I'd say among it is something you'll enjoy doing. You don't want to go to work every day when that comes, but not liking what you have to do because you didn't find a talent that you liked and pursued it. Prepare, get a good education, learn to read, write, and speak well, but also to develop those talents and increase your skills. Perform, always do your best in everything that you do, but let excellence be your goal. That's the key. And persevere. Don't let some negative circumstances be excuse for not achieving. We could have gone off and bowed our head and said they called me names they don't like me, say I can't do it, and not served our country. That would have been a tragedy had we felt that way. We were glad for the opportunity, and as I say, didn't let those negative circumstances, uh, didn't use them as an excuse for not achieving. Those 4 Ps, I think, fit today. The value lessons that has sustained us are still good for the youngsters today who are our country's future.
I really like that. I'm going to use that, sir, if you're okay with that.
Please do. Again, perceive, prepare, perform, persevere. I pass that on, and I hope you can.
Well, I will, so it really it begins with personal initiative and taking your life into your own hands and be responsible for your own life and advancement.
Exactly. If somebody tells you can't and you believe it, you're lost. I, I have an example in the family, 2 examples that I like. These ways, counselors always tell particularly young girls, oh, you don't want to be an engineer. I've got to have a daughter that wonderful work in developing city centers and other things that she's done because she didn't listen to somebody telling her she couldn't do it. Also, I have an example, another example in the family, my son. When he graduated from high school, his counselor told he and his mother, I think you'll make a good truck driver. He went after right after that graduation to college and got a degree in aerospace engineering. He's now a retired commercial pilot with over 30,000 hours. So the idea that too many counselors tell youngsters they can't do something or make a determination is wrong. They need to be on the idea, believe it, determine it, and know that you can if you put your mind to it and your spirit is in the right direction. We need that for all of the youngsters because they are our country's future.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. And sir, you've made reference to your faith several times. What would you say to a young man or woman who really doesn't think that faith is important, that they can pretty much have a successful life without a faith in a higher power in God?
That's probably not an easy question to answer for all youngsters because it's what they learned from their family and this type of thing. But I think they just have to realize that, go back at history. The Heavenly Father made Earth possible, put the animals on the earth and provided for them, put people on the earth and provided for them. It's we and our own self-determinations that go astray and have done many things that are not good for us or for our youngsters. And I think one of my experiences, and of course everybody doesn't have that opportunity, but back when the flying wasn't as expensive as it now, and if an airplane was in commission, you want to do some night flying, you could go get an airplane, go night fly. But I had the experience once of getting an aircraft and at sunset, climbing up to 45,000 feet, seeing the sunset again. And I realized, and I'll pass on to people, we human beings are one small aspect in a mighty grand universe. We need to be aware of that, but realize and understand the universe and how it came about and how and what blessings really that we are given as we accomplish our life in this universe wherever we may be. And unfortunately, there's lots of things happening out there. We hope, just like saying, hopefully we don't have more war. We can be a peaceful nation with the other nations around, the other peoples around the world. These are all hopes, and if we give up hope, you're lost. So we can't give up hope, but still hope, realize, and the youngsters have to see and understand that not easy in the life that we live and the way our schools are established and so on. Unfortunately, it brings to my mind what our biggest problem is. It's money. Our best schools are areas where they have additional support and lots of money. Unfortunately, how many hundreds or really thousands of youngsters don't get that opportunity because they're not in an area or a community where that money comes to the school the way it does in some areas.
Sure.
Will we overcome this in time? I haven't given up hope, but certainly, well, we can't walk off and not do anything because it's slow in coming about, but we have to keep it in mind and realize that maybe one day it'll hit that all the youngsters get the right opportunities they're growing up to serve. And as I tell youngsters, what you do good for yourself is good for family. What's good for family is good for the community. What's good for the community is good for our country. So we hope that works for all. And it's a path that we hope many more get the chance to participate in.
Very good. And finally, sir, if you would just kind of offer any final words of wisdom for leaders, for airmen, what kind of advice would you leave us with?
Very interesting question too, because all opportunities and all circumstances aren't exactly the same, but certainly it's important. Excuse me. For leadership, one of the things that I like to pass on to young officers and so on, if you have favorites, don't let it show. You need to treat every person under your command and they to see you as giving them each equal attention, equal opportunity. It's nice to have the favorites, but I say don't let it show. Treat all of your people to the lowest. And I got that out of experience that one day when I was a wing and base commander, just went down the hangar, it was quiet, only one airman in there, a young man, spoke to him, and we chatted a bit. But when I left, he said, you know, this is the first time in my career that a senior officer has come and asked me how I'm doing and what was going on. That was a lesson for me too. Don't do something or ask your troops to do something you won't do as well. and I can remember when I retired, still one of the pictures I have is that although I was wing and base commander, if there was, and I was driving down the taxiway or the ramp to visit some area, if there was trash, I stopped and picked it up because I was telling him, pick up the trash. We don't want to have an aircraft damage going. So that's something that I would pass on. Have your favorites, don't let it show. But also, don't be afraid of doing something that you ask your troops to do.
Oh, very good. Well, General McGee, I can't tell you what a privilege it's been to spend a few minutes with you today. And on behalf of our entire chaplain corps, about 2,000 chaplains and religious affairs airmen and contractors around the world, we just want to say thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for being a leader, even as your age now has 3 digits to it. We are so proud of you, and we all want to grow up and be just like you.
Well, thank you. That's very kind and very thoughtful. We'll keep a prayer that happens. Add it to a prayer list that such does take place. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and we wish everybody the best because we've got so much to stand for. A lot of things, like I say, hopefully we don't have to repeat war, but we do need to be prepared. And certainly our youngsters are our future, and we need to be attentive to what's happening. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and we wish everybody the very best.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you, my friend.